that the President of the United States compares to Al-Qaeda and calls animals, who, he says, have literally taken over towns and cities of the United States. I watch the news and the snake in my stomach twists and tightens my gut before the eternal return of two figures whose outsized contributions to the cataclysmic cycles of Salvadoran violence go back to the early 90s but remain largely forgotten. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani and two-time U.S. Attorney General William Barr. I nod, as if silently agreeing with Pop's gangs as the cause of every problem thesis. The snake in my gut lets me know there's no room to deal with the shooting and Giuliani and Barr and Pop all at once. Yeah, you're right, Pop. The news from El Paso and my friends' terrified social media responses tighten my shoulders and neck, my body reminding me of those times when someone has tried to hurt or kill me. It brings back a memory of sitting at Pop's dining room table last April. I was helping him pay some overdue bills while he watched Animal Planet. During a commercial break, Pop stood suddenly and hobbled back to his bedroom. The soft, steady sk-sk-sk of his fluffy gray orthopedic slipper rubbing against the faded linoleum sounded faster than his usual pace. A minute later, another faster pace sk-sk-sk signaled he was navigating his way through the kitchen toward the living room. As he neared the table, he stopped and stood next to me. I looked up and smiled at him. He had a strangely familiar look on his tense, unshaven face. His eyes like daggers, looking at me with a wrath I hadn't seen since my adolescent years, when our anger was at its mutual worst. I raised my eyes in disbelief when I saw his hand wrapped tight around the dusty, varnished black handle of a machete. Without warning, Pop swung his machete toward me, screaming, "You drogadicto son of a bitch, stop trying to steal my money!" I glanced at the 96-year-old hands clutching the machete's handle. The flags of Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, and El Salvador on the old souvenir were about to come down on my head. I jumped to Pop's side and grabbed the machete before he could finish the act. Pop stood dazed and frustrated and alone. I rushed out of the dining room to hide the machete downstairs in a safe corner of the garage. He rarely went into the garage, since he stopped driving 2 years ago at age 94. From down below, I heard my cousin Anna's hurried footsteps rushing from her room, through the kitchen and into the dining room. I remained downstairs a few minutes to let my cousin chill Pop out. In the cool silence of the garage, a couple of 5-by-3-foot cardboard boxes sit side by side in the shadows beneath the stairs. The boxes bear musty old clothes, cheap new blouses, radios, calculators, TVs, and other ancient electronics, and outdated toys. Remnants of my family's contraband empire, once a source of income, and serious family conflict and inner conflict of my own. Minutes later, the mellifluous guitars and layered 3-part harmonies of Golondrina Viajera, a bittersweet bolero by Trio Los Condes, followed by the soulful, dreamy sounds of José Feliciano singing La Barca, another nostalgic Pop favorite, signaled Pop's latest storm had subsided. It was safe to come back upstairs. Music, we were told some years ago, would help calm Pop's dementia. Doctors predict his process of mental fragmentation will only accelerate over time. The machete cuts slowly. Now we're watching Alex Trebek start Jeopardy! Months after Pop's outburst, we no longer have machetes in the house, a decision that runs contrary to the traditions of Salvadorans in the U.S. Many of the 2 to 3 million Salvadorans living here since the bloody civil war of the 80s and early 90s have souvenir machetes in their homes. Machetes adorned the waists of countless men back when most Salvadorans lived in the countryside. Revolvers replaced them in the age of the urban majority. The image of skinny, droopy immigrant kids strutting into Liborio Market in LA's Pico Union Westlake district to buy the machetes in the 90s lingers. They were among the first mareros I saw. Only later did I realize that the machetes those gang members bought gave local media, Hollywood, and the LAPD, and eventually the Pentagon and U.S. presidents, the exotic ethos they needed to turn the skinny kids into a tattoo-faced scourge, the most violent gang in the world. Those of us in the Pico Union area knew why those early mareros carried rocks and baseball bats and bought machetes. The poor immigrant youth needed to defend themselves from larger gangs, but couldn't afford the AK-47s and other weapons used by the older, richer, more sophisticated Crips.